The worst loneliness is to not be comfortable with yourself. Mark Twain. You're in another meeting that shouldn't exist. The manager is talking about collaboration synergies and streamlining vertical communication. Someone suggests a new workflow that sounds like the last one, just with different colors, nods all around, muted enthusiasm, fake laughter, everyone pretending this matters, everyone pretending they matter, and you're sitting there, wondering if anyone else feels it. The absurdity, the hollowness, the weird little theater we all perform in just to keep our roles intact. You scan the room. One guy keeps dropping buzzwords like grenades, leverage, alignment, paradigm shift. Another woman, always smiling, scribbles notes with robotic urgency. You know she's quietly miserable. You've seen the way her eyes flicker when she thinks no one's looking. But you play along too. You nod. You smile at the right moments. You type things you don't care about into documents no one will read. And the saddest part is, you're good at it. Good at faking interest. Good at looking productive. Good at burying the part of you that's quietly whispering, "This isn't real. This isn't you." And when the meeting ends, someone jokes, "Another day, another dollar," and you all laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's a ritual, a little corporate prayer, a shared sigh wrapped in sarcasm. Then it's back to your desk. Emails, Slack, a quick scroll through Instagram where everyone's pretending in brighter colors. One guy posts about grinding for his goals with a picture of his laptop and a matcha latte. You saw him yesterday, dead-eyed in the elevator, sighing between every floor. Another woman posts a gratitude list. Her daily joy is a selfie and a sponsored collagen ad. You know her too. She avoids eye contact in real life, stays late, goes home to silence. You used to think you were the only one faking it. Now you're starting to wonder if anyone's not. But here's the question that gnaws quietly at the back of your mind. What if none of this is real? Not just for you, but for everyone. What if the problem isn't that you're lost, but that you've been trying to belong to something that doesn't actually exist? Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol or morphine or idealism. Carl Jung. Let's be honest now. You've become addicted to your own performance, not out of vanity, not out of weakness, but because, at some point, it worked. You learned early that authenticity unsettled people, that vulnerability was inconvenient, but efficiency, charm, competence, that made you valuable. So you became the version of yourself that earned approval. You crafted a self that was digestible, safe, admired, polite in groups, productive at work, entertaining at dinner, supportive in texts. You gave people what they wanted, and it worked. But now the applause feels distant. The compliments feel empty, because the version of you they love isn't really you. It started small. You downplayed your exhaustion, laughed at jokes that stung, said no problem when it absolutely was. But the cracks grew, and somewhere along the way, the performance stopped being a mask and started becoming your identity. Think of Robin Williams, a man whose joy lit up millions while privately drowning. Or Marilyn Monroe, adored by the world, yet writing in her diary, "I just want to be loved for who I am." They weren't destroyed by fame. They were destroyed by being seen, but never known. And maybe you're not a celebrity, but the ache, it's familiar. You walk into work and no one asks how you're really doing. You sit in group chats, responding on cue, jokes, emojis, cheer, and still feel alone. You show up to friendships out of obligation, not intimacy. You've become irreplaceable to everyone, except yourself. And now you're exhausted in a way sleep can't fix, because pretending is a full-time job. Smiling when you want to cry, listening to people who never ask about you, explaining your boundaries like a lawyer presenting evidence, just to be respected. And you hesitate to stop, because the mask gets you invited, keeps you employed, protects you from being left behind. But here's the truth. You're performing a version of yourself that's slowly erasing the real one. And the scariest part? You're not sure what's left underneath. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Carl Rogers. You weren't born like this. You didn't arrive in the world afraid to speak, to rest, to be inconvenient. That fear was learned, drip by drip, moment by moment, long before you had words for it. Somewhere back there, before job titles, before group chats, before the pressure to always be fine, the world handed you a quiet, brutal message. Love must be earned. Safety is conditional. Your real self? Too much, too loud, too raw. Maybe it came from a mother who only looked proud when you were useful, a father who applauded your grades but dismissed your emotions. Maybe it was a family that praised self-sacrifice and punished needs. You learned quickly, don't ask for too much, don't cry too hard, don't take up space. So you became the reliable one, the fixer, the easy child, the overachiever. You got good at staying quiet, at smiling when you were tired, at being liked by becoming what others needed. It wasn't weakness, it was survival. And now, you don't know how to exist without proving your worth. At work, you're the one who stays late, picks up the slack, remembers deadlines others forget. You're praised for your attitude, but not invited into decisions. You're productive, but never protected. You're exhausted, and still afraid to stop. In friendships, you notice how one-sided it's become. You hold space for others, but no one asks how you are. You're the one they call when their life is falling apart. But when you go quiet, the phone stays silent. You give more than you have, and you call it love. But you leave those conversations emptier than you entered, not angry, just unseen. And all the while, you perform. You write cheerful replies with a clenched jaw. You say, "Of course," when you want to say no. You laugh at things that aren't funny and cry in bathrooms where no one can hear. You've learned to survive by disappearing into expectations, just like Kafka, who asked for his life's work to be burned unread, a man whose brilliance was buried under fear of being misunderstood. You've survived. You've succeeded. But somewhere along the way, you vanished. And now, decades later, you sit at brunches that bore you, attend meetings that deplete you, nod in conversations that erase you, and wonder why it all feels so wrong. Because the roles you play are still playing you. And until you unlearn them, they'll keep stealing your life, one "I'm fine" at a time. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. Leonard Cohen. Then, one day, it slips. You're in another conversation, playing the role you've worn like armor, polite, competent, agreeable. Someone says something mildly cruel or mind-numbingly fake, and for the first time, you don't smooth it over, you don't laugh, you don't nod, you just pause. And in that pause, something fractures, quietly, deeply. It's not defiance, not anger, it's something older, something like truth. You realize you can't do this anymore. You can't keep nodding through friendships that feel like obligations. Can't keep sharing your heart with people who treat your feelings like background noise. Can't keep responding out of guilt to those who forget you the moment their crisis ends. At work, it's no different. You're praised for your reliability, but no one asks how you're really doing. You're called a team player while your needs are invisible. You smile in meetings where nothing real is said, then stay late fixing chaos you didn't create. You try to rewind, push through, smile wider, numb deeper. But it's not working. The mask you once wore like skin now feels suffocating. And suddenly you see it everywhere. In the group chat that never notices your silence. In the boss who talks about wellness while scheduling weekend emails. In yourself saying it's fine when it's not. And I'm grateful when you feel nothing at all. You don't scream, you don't run. But the question rises, what if I stopped pretending? You hear it in the quiet, while folding laundry, stuck in traffic, lying awake at 2 a.m. This isn't collapse, it's the beginning of fracture. The slow unraveling of a self built to please, to perform, to survive. Think of Nina Simone. She said, "You've got to learn to leave the table when love is no longer being served. You're still sitting there, but something in you has already stood up, and soon your life will follow. Be still." The quieter you become, the more you can hear. Ram Dass. It happens slowly. You start noticing the space between the impulse and the response, the way your fingers hover over the keyboard, not typing, the way your phone lights up, and for once, you let it. You don't jump to apologize. You don't rush to soothe. It's like learning to hold a note instead of rushing to the chorus. Like Miles Davis once said, it's not the notes you play, it's the silence between them. And suddenly, that silence is yours. And in that silence, something painful becomes clear. You look around at your relationships, your group chats, your calendar, and realize So much of your life has been built around trying to stay relevant to people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared. You start to feel the weight of conversations that go nowhere, friendships that revolve around other people's problems, while no one ever asks how you are, interactions that feel like transactions, emotional ATM withdrawals with no deposits. You realize you've been clinging to connections that expired long ago out of guilt or memory or the fear of starting over. At work, you begin to see the madness, the endless urgency around things that don't matter. The late nights spent tweaking fonts on presentations no one will read, the performance of professionalism, smiling while slowly unraveling, meetings scheduled just to prove something is happening. You start asking yourself, what exactly am I sacrificing my life for? Even your own ambition feels suspect now, not because you don't care, but because you finally see how much of it came from the hunger to be seen, not the desire to create. It's sobering, and it hurts. But there's something sacred about it too, like when a fever breaks, like when you stop chasing someone and finally feel your own legs beneath you again. You're not trying to become impressive anymore. You're trying to become honest. You sit alone on your couch, no music playing, no wine to numb, and for the first time in months, you don't reach for your phone. You just sit, knees pulled in, face warm from the tears you didn't expect, and whisper, without theatrics, I'm tired, and I'm ready. Ready to stop performing love, ready to stop proving worth, ready to stop earning rest. And no one claps for this moment. But deep inside, something finally exhales. You don't know what comes next, but you know exactly what ends here. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Something is changing. You don't post about it. You don't text your friends, I'm growing. You just start doing things differently. You stop reaching out to people who always forget to reach back. You stop replying to messages that drain your energy before you've even typed a word. You stop showing up to obligations that feel more like performances than connection. You don't ghost anyone, but you also don't ghost yourself anymore. You begin to see the cost of all the pretending, especially with friends who only come alive when they need something. The ones who celebrate you loudly in public, then vanish when you're quietly falling apart. The ones who say, let me know if you need anything, but never actually make space. And without making a scene, you let them fade. Not from cruelty, from clarity. At work, you stop glamorizing burnout. You stop confusing urgency with importance. You look at your calendar and realize that half your schedule is filled with proving your value to people who never notice your rest, only your output. You stop staying late just to be seen. You stop fighting for credit in rooms where you're barely respected. You stop trading your peace for promotions that cost too much to wear. You start choosing your presence over your performance. You speak slower. You say, I'll think about it. You stop over-explaining your number. You stop sugarcoating your yes. Your boundaries get cleaner, not sharper, not louder, just cleaner. Like a house that isn't full of clutter, just quietly in order. And when someone asks, are we still good? You say, I'm not sure what we are anymore, because you're done lying to keep others comfortable. Like Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them. But now, you apply it to yourself too. You believe your own discomfort, your own intuition, your own exhaustion. You don't chase being chosen anymore, because you've finally chosen you, and it's changing everything. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Anais Nin. It doesn't start with fireworks. It starts on a random Tuesday. You're staring at a message from someone who only remembers you when their life falls apart. And for the first time, you don't feel guilt. You don't feel rage. You feel done. You delete it. No explanation. No reply. Not out of bitterness, but because something in you finally understands your presence is no longer for rent. You walk into work and hear the same buzzwords echoing off the conference room walls: alignment, innovation, team culture. But it hits differently now, not with anger, but with distance. You no longer confuse urgency with purpose. You no longer confuse being needed with being respected. You no longer sacrifice your weekends just to look dedicated in someone else's spreadsheet. Your job still matters, but it no longer owns you. And your friendships? they've changed too. You stop chasing people who make you feel like a burden when you're honest. You stop laughing at stories you've heard 100 times from people who never ask about you. You stop showing up to events where you have to shrink to be included, and something beautiful happens. The right people stay, the wrong ones fade, and the silence left behind. It feels like peace. You cook yourself dinner, not to impress, not to post, just to nourish. You go to sleep without checking who watched your story. You wake up and don't need 10 tabs open just to feel alive. This isn't a reinvention. It's a return to who you were before the performance, before the pleasing, before the exhaustion. You're no longer trying to earn rest. You live like someone who deserves it. You're no longer trying to impress your boss. You build a life where your health is the KPI. You're no longer afraid of being alone because you're finally with yourself. Like Georgia O'Keeffe once said, "I have already settled it for myself, so flattery and criticism go down the same drain." This is your turning point, the moment you stop begging for space and take it. No grand speech, no big post, just this quiet vow. I will not abandon myself ever again. Let that be the first sentence of the life you actually want to live. Let everything false burn, and let you, the real, tired, sacred, tender you, finally begin. If you want fewer hacks and more truth, stay close. Hit subscribe